So I'm cleaning up this section of my basement. It used to just be a storage area and part of my studio. I'm bored this weekend though, so I think I'm going to build a mini ramp. Now that I've moved the studio to the other side, this section is huge. You can see the old green screen here that I used on my very first YouTube channel. I don't use that very much anymore. Before we go any further though, I need to let you know this is not a how-to video. This is more of a how-I video, as in how I made this project work in the space that I have available. We're going to start this project with all the wood that I bought. I got it all stacked in the garage, ready to go. Hopefully you can see where I marked that transition on this board. This mini ramp's going to be 2 feet tall, the deck's going to be a foot deep, and it's going to transition down to about 3.5 inches off the ground. The first section cut out very easily, and I quickly realized that since this is only 2 feet tall, I can get all 4 pieces of my transition out of one panel. I flipped the first transition over and then just traced it to make the other side. This is about a 60-degree transition. The 2x4s that I'm using are stock stud 2x4s, so they're just short of 8 feet long, making this mini ramp just short of 8 feet wide. Working on a project like this is tricky when you're doing it yourself. You kind of got to make do with what you got to make things work out. Anyhow, it'll all work out in the end. The end of the basement with the old green screen makes a unique challenge. I've got this little section here that sticks out about a foot. So I'm going to kind of do something unique with this end of the transition. I'm basically just going to work around it. You can kind of see here how I split the transition on one end to make it work out. The mock-up of this side here makes things a lot more clear. The other side's coming along perfectly. I spent a lot of time carrying a lot of wood from the garage to the basement piece by piece so that I could build the flat section of the ramp. For those interested, I'm going to be using the J-hook technique for attaching the coping. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to do that, and I'll link to one of the best in the description below. Here you can see how I clamp the coping into place. Just enough to hold it steady while I worked from the other side and drilled out the holes for the J-hooks. Those holes had to go through and mark the coping so that I knew where to drill the holes that the J-hooks would eventually go into. And for those curious, I'm using EMT Conduit 1.5 inch for the coping. Hopefully it'll work out. You can check out my other video for testing on that. With all the holes drilled out, it's just a matter of inserting the J-hooks, flipping the coping over, feeding those hooks through the wood, and putting on a washer and a nut. Very simple. The coping on this side of the mini ramp is now done. Worked out pretty good. Did a little bit of extra supports there in the background. Now it's time to work on the other side. I've now got the coping on both ends of the mini ramp, and I've started framing the flat section. You can finally get an idea of how things are starting to come together. After the long and tedious process of building the flat section there, I had to get the help of my wife to slide the entire frame of this mini ramp up against the wall. Thing's way heavier than I thought it would be. And on that note, it takes a very special kind of spouse to not really care that you're building something like this in your basement. One of the things that struck me about halfway through this project, as many things strike me, I suddenly lost a lot of storage space in this area, so I went ahead and cut a doorway in this part of the transition. That way it gives me some storage underneath the ramp. Leaving this open looks pretty jank, and I don't want my dogs running back there. I need to make a door for this. There we go. Well, the mini ramp project is complete. Final cost of this project, about $513. I'm real happy with the way that this turned out, and I've still got use of that green screen if I need it sometime in the future. I bet you'd like to see me use this mini ramp, but I don't have the emergency room programmed in my phone yet. This project was a lot of work, and even if you're not a skater, you know I'd appreciate that thumbs up like. Follow us on Instagram and see what ideas don't make it to video. And maybe, just maybe, I'll see you on the next video. If you enjoy videos about the randomness of our amazing world, consider clicking on the globe to subscribe, or maybe checking out one of the other videos right here.